them off like sheep for the slaughter, Jeremiah 12:3. Sinners will be crushed together, and those who forsake the Lord will come to an end, Isaiah 1:28. The people will be like cut thorns, which are burned in the fire, Isaiah 33:12. The soul that sins will die, Ezekiel 18:4. The guilty are consumed as stubble, completely withered. They will be cut off and pass away, Nahum 1:2-13. The great day of the Lord is a day of destruction and desolation. All the earth will be devoured in the fire of his jealousy, for he will make a complete end of all the inhabitants of the earth. Zephaniah 1:14-18. Listen to this one. Every evildoer will be chaff, and the day that is coming will set them ablaze, so that it will leave them neither root nor branch. You will tread down the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet. Malachi 4:1-3. Where Malachi leaves off, the New Testament picks up. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Matthew 3:10. Just as the weeds are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. Matthew 13:40. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. John 15:6. Now let's take a breath and think about these images for a moment. What becomes of chaff, weeds, and dry dead branches when they are thrown into a fire? How ludicrous to think that Jesus wanted to convey a message of preservation and torment in fire by using these illustrations. They communicate the exact opposite idea of disintegration and consumption. What is worse, why didn't Jesus just teach eternal torment plainly and explicitly? In Matthew 10:28, he says, "Fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in Gehenna," or hell in English. If what he really meant was fear him who is going to torment both soul and body in Gehenna forever, why didn't he just say that? It is simply unreasonable to imagine that Jesus wanted to tell us about eternal torment, but never actually got around to it, and instead gave us pictures of burning up weeds and dry branches to teach it. To be candid, such a conclusion is ridiculous. But the whole New Testament is permeated with this language. Here's a sampling. This is the bread which comes down out of heaven, so that one may eat of it and not die. John 6:50. If anyone keeps my words, he will never see death. John 8:51. I give eternal life to them, and they will never perish. John 10:28. Death, die, perish. These are the penalties for sin, repeated over and over. He who loves his life will lose it. John 12:25. What is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? Luke 9:25. Every soul that does not heed that profit shall be utterly destroyed from among the people. Acts 3:23. Those who practice unrighteousness are worthy of death. Romans 1:32. Those who have sinned without the law will perish without the law. Romans 2:12. The wages of sin is death. Romans 6:23. Vessels of wrath prepared for destruction. Romans 9:22. The word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. 1 Corinthians 1:18. The gospel is veiled to those who are perishing. 2 Corinthians 4:3. Enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction. Philippians 3:19. While they are saying peace and safety, then destruction will come upon them. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. In the book of Hebrews, sinners can expect judgment and the fury of a fire which will consume the adversaries. 10:27. We are not those who shrink back to destruction. 10:39. Our God is a consuming fire. 12:29. My friends, a fire that consumes cannot also eternally torment. The Epistle of James states, when sin is accomplished, it brings forth death. 1:15. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. 4:12. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. 4:14. He who turns a sinner from the error of his way will save his soul from death. 5:20. Does any of this sound like everlasting conscious torment? 2 Peter says corrupt people are like unreasoning animals, to be caught and killed, and will in the destruction of those creatures also be destroyed. 2:10-12. God condemned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah to destruction by reducing them to ashes, having made them an example to those who would live ungodly lives thereafter. 2:6. If that was the example, there's really nothing left to argue about. The ungodly will be reduced to ashes. Continuing, the present heavens and earth are being reserved for fire, kept for the day of judgment and destruction of ungodly men. 2 Peter 3:7. The day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up. But God is not willing that any should perish. 3:9 and 10. Can there be any uncertainty as to what this language means, especially after the authors cite historical examples and say it will be like this? Is there a satisfactory explanation for why the New Testament writers, when attempting to teach endless torment, used words like consume, kill, death, perish, melt, and destroy? Which one of those verses could ever be distorted to mean that sinners should expect a fire that will not consume them? And what other possible way could Peter have more clearly described the fate of the ungodly than to say they will be destroyed, compare it to Sodom's fate, and then say that they are being reserved for a fire that is going to melt the earth? To conclude, the biblical record is unanimous and perfectly understandable.
1 minute, Steve.
Sinners are not eternal, and they are not immortal. The language of endless conscious torment is mysteriously and inexcusably absent. The renewed creation will be a restoration of all things, a perfect state where only righteousness will exist. The persistent language of death and destruction, from the explicit statements of body and soul destroyed in Gehenna to images of chaff and dead branches being burned up by fire, there can be no reasonable doubt what is to become of the ungodly. Thank you.